Welcome everyone, Costin here with my Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires DLC tier list. Whether or not a DLC is worth purchasing right now. Not how it was valued when it came out. I'm obviously only going to consider the paid portion of the DLC, not the free stuff that came alongside with it. Though certainly some DLCs would be much higher on this list if we also included all the free stuff available as well. But regardless, let's take this from the most recent DLC, starting with Omens of Destruction. I think Omens of Destruction is a solid B tier DLC. And the reason I'm going to put it in B tier, you do get one good campaign, a really good campaign with Maneater. That's great, that's superb. Not necessarily the best campaigns with either Gorbad or with Skulltaker. Maybe some rebalancing will happen right there, but if you're looking to buy Omens of Destruction, I would say that buying it for Maneater is probably going to be worth it. Buying it for Skulltaker or Gorbad, not necessarily on the same level. It's worth it more to purchase it for all the goodies, all the units, regiments, renown, lords, heroes, legendary heroes that are part of this DLC. So really solid middle of the road right there with Omens of Destruction. Don't get me wrong, I think CA did a pretty good job with this DLC in terms of like the Cordon rework, the Greenskin rework, the Ogre rework, like 3 racial reworks that good in one single DLC, that's freaking phenomenal. And campaign reworks, very significant ones for Scraggs, significant ones for Greases, the addition of Arbold, changes to Skarsnik, Warzag, Scarbrand, so really good content for free, but in terms of the actual paid stuff, yeah, I just don't think the campaigns are necessarily worth it. Then we have Thrones of Decay. I think Thrones of Decay is the single best DLC that Creative Assembly has released to date. And certainly the one that's worth it the most. Not necessarily for the units for the dwarves, but when you consider like Malachi's campaign, the best, or one of the best at the very least, campaign in the game right now. One of the best campaigns in the game. And the units, the Slayer stuff, does benefit Ungrim more than it benefits Malachi. So all the Slayer stuff really was a love letter for Ungrim. So it's making existing campaigns better for the Dwarven race. For the Empire, the addition of the Gunpowder units, the new Lord, the new hero, great stuff. I don't think Elspeth is necessarily as good of a campaign, but still, she's a fairly solid campaign, all things considered. Then you have Tamarkand. I think Tamarkand is the best Nurgle campaign, and honestly, the only Nurgle campaign worth playing for Nurgle as a race. Like, if you're looking to play a Nurgle campaign, I'd say Festus generally is better, with the exception of Tamarkand. So I think, like, Malachi and Tamarkand have the best campaigns for the races. I wouldn't necessarily say that for Elspeth, but just the units, the lords, the heroes, regiments around, it's all very much worth it. And look, having 2 great campaigns out of a DLC, even if it is a pricier DLC, then it's still very much a really good deal as far as I see it. Like, I do think everyone who's playing Warhammer 3 should get Thrones of Decay. Omens of Destruction, I would recommend it if you're looking to play Maneater in particular, though you can obviously benefit for Khorne. I would say it's actually very useful to buy it for the sake of playing a Khorne campaign. Less so for a Greenskin campaign from my point of view. But, you know, that's your decision. Then Shadows of Change, awful DLC really. Like, let me put it like this with Shadows of Change. The campaigns themselves are not great. The Changeling, horrible campaign. Ostankya, horrible campaign. Yambo, he has technically the best Kafane campaign to be sure, but just not that great either. So Lustria campaign, like just Kafane campaigns have a lot of issues in terms of like being replayable and enjoyable. I do think Yambo has the most potential in a Kafane campaign, but he has that whole fucking Lustria aspect, and yeah, Lustria is not a great portion of the campaign map at the moment. Then we have Forge of the Cast Dwarves. I think Forge of the Cast Dwarves is an A tier DLC, great race pack, lots of units, lots of variety. May not necessarily match the pacing that we do currently have in Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign, at least on Legendary, but you do have 2 great campaigns in Astrokov and Drazif in particular. You do have a great unit roster. You do have a very unique and good race. So I'd really recommend Forge of the Chaos Warriors as far as race packs are concerned. Then we have the Champions of Chaos DLC. Here's my perspective on this. So I would have rated it lower beforehand, but with the Khorne rework, I think if you're really looking to enjoy Khorne campaign, I would have both Omens of Destruction and Champions of Chaos. If you're looking to enjoy Nurgle campaign, Festus has one of the best Nurgle campaigns in the game. And there is a lot of additions to Warriors of Chaos and Demonic races in this DLC. So B or C, like the campaigns, like I can't really say that Champions of Chaos are necessarily worth playing. I think like the Mono God campaigns, like exception like, you know, Festus and Valkia to a certain extent. So the campaigns, they're workable. Like they're not a misery like you might experience with Lustria, for instance, in Skulltaker's campaign, or Stankia or Jan Bo, or the Changeling in their respective campaigns, given what they're dealing with. But I do think there's better campaigns for Demons, for Chaos, for Warriors of Chaos than this, but the value proposition in terms of the sheer number of units, lords, I know it's just variants, but they do matter from my point of view. So I think this DLC is a solid choice of a DLC, and this was before CA went completely insane with the price increases, as far as I see it, so I think you can probably get this cheaper right now. Then we have Silence and the Fury. How would I rate this DLC? Well, here's the thing. In terms of a value proposition, it's very, very much an S tier DLC. For the Beastmen especially, but also Axial has the best Lizardmen campaign in the game. Like, both of these campaigns are the best campaigns for their respective races. But both respective races suck. Okay, saying Beastmen suck is dishonest to the Beastmen. Lizardmen suck, and while Axial goes a long way towards fixing that by not having to deal with fucking Lustria, I do think that Lizardmen, even under him, are just not really a great race to play in so many different ways. I can't say it's a horrible piece of crap of a DLC. Like, obviously when it came out, amazing DLC, but I think age has not been kind to the Lizardmen in particular, and I think the Beastmen don't work especially well. I'm gonna put it in D tier. I think that if you're looking to play a Beastmen campaign, this is the one you should buy. The value proposition is really good. You don't need to buy the Beastmen race pack to have access to pretty much their entire roster. And I think, like, for a Lizardman campaign, Oxal is the best one, but just keep in mind, both races have problems. Lizardmen more so than Beastmen. This is the principal DLC that adds regiments around for the Beastmen, so just keep that aspect in mind with regards to that. Twisted and Twilight. Well, as much as I think Wood Elves are an annoying race, and as many issues as I might have with Fraud's campaign, where would I say this? So I think, like, Sisters of Twilight have a really fun and unique campaign. Would I say it's the best Wood Elf campaign? It depends on your preference with respect to that. I think, like, it's either Sisters. Like, Sisters can be fun, Durfu can be fun, Dryka can be fun. Like, as far as fun as Wood Elven campaigns can be anyway. But the value proposition is certainly really good here. You do get access to two very unique lords with very unique playstyles for two pretty powerful races. And Skaven are a fun race. Even Fraud's campaign is not necessarily the best Skaven campaign, but that's more so to do with his starting position and anything else. But yeah, he's a perfectly functional Legendary Lord, actually. Like, it's not an issue of the Legendary Lord or the race in his case. It's just literally how Kislev is designed, how his starting position is designed, just not great. Warden and the Paunch. I know that this is going to be highly regarded DLC by a lot of people, but do I think Warden and the Paunch is worth it at the moment? Kind of. So, for High Elves, there's really good stuff for both High Elves and Greenskins in this. I think I'm going to put it in C tier. I think the High Elf stuff, like Archmage Lords, like, there's just limited benefits in getting this DLC for High Elves, unless you want to completely break the High Elves with Archmage Lords. So you can do that, to be clear. You can absolutely do that with Archmage Lords. I don't think that's a great selling point of a DLC when you're buying it just because the High Elves are a pretty fucking broken race right now, and they are, and imbalance and all that. I don't think Elfarian's campaign is that great in a lot of ways at the moment. Just the climate screws them over, the starting position, the duality of that starting position just doesn't work that well. Like, you play an Elfarian campaign, you want to deal with Grom, you will never encounter fucking Grom in a campaign as Elfarian, unless even if you deliberately go towards him in Bretonia, You will probably not meet Grom with Elfarian, and likely on a higher difficulty, Bretonnia will wipe him out. Or someone will wipe him out, even if it's the Empire, even if it takes a while. Like, that's kind of a shame, really, because, like, that whole rivalry was a significant aspect in both the lore and in this DLC when it came out. But yeah, just not especially well handled in Immortal Empires. I would have put it lower, but I gotta say this. Stone Trolls, really good unit. This DLC gives you the replenishment hero for the greenskins, so those two things are very freaking important, especially replenishment hero. I don't think Grom's campaign is worth it. I don't think Elfarian's campaign is worth it, but while they may not necessarily have as many units as Champions of Chaos, what they do provide, what the greenskins get from this DLC is essential. Not necessarily for the High Elves, from my point of view. So, you know, I could possibly put it in D tier as well. But look, any DLC that adds a replenishment hero is going to get higher on this list just because it's a pretty damn big deal to get a replenishment hero in a campaign. And this is the one that adds it for the greenskins. Shadow and Blade. That's an interesting one. So I think the Skaven portion of this DLC, like Warp Grinders, Mortars, really, really good units. Right, so the Skaven part, the campaign itself, really good stuff. The Dark Elf stuff, like the actual units, the Master Hero at Regiments Renown, all that, really solid stuff from that perspective. Malice Darkblade's campaign kind of sucks. No, it does suck. It's a functional campaign. There's nothing inherently broken about it, but I just think it's pretty boring. I think, as much as I think Snitch's campaign is a good campaign to actually play, I gotta take it down a notch just because Malice Darkblade is not worth it. Purchase them more for the Skaven than Dark Elves, though there are some very useful things for Dark Elves. Just understand the campaign that the Dark Elves get for this DLC is not necessarily gonna be great. By the way, anything that's above D tier is worth it to a degree or another, just on a different level. Then we have the Beast and the Hunter. Yeah, F tier. Neither campaign is worth it. Neither Legendary Lord is great. The additions of units, regiments, renown, yeah, okay, fair enough. Those can kind of be worth it. Kind of. Like, Marcus Wolfheart is a completely outdated campaign, and all the content he provides for the Empire, with the exception of regiments, renown, just not really worth investing in, especially if you get Thrones of Decay. And even if you don't get Thrones of Decay, the Empire rework has made it so that Marcus Wolfheart is pretty redundant at the moment, I think. And also horrible campaign. Like, Lestria sucks, Marcus Wolfheart's not great, Nakai is not great. Just, like, yeah, not a great DLC to... Like, with the exception of a handful of things, just not really worth picking up from my perspective. Next up, Prophet and Warlock. It's a C tier DLC. Oh, but Ikeclaw, he's an awesome Legendary Lord. Yeah, with a really horrible starting position. Look, if you just want to play a campaign once, fair enough. You can endure the horrible early game and make it work. Personally, when I'm looking to buy a DLC, I want to get value from it in terms of replayability. I think like Ikeclaw's campaign is just not that replayable. You can do it, you can manage it, but it's always going to be a pain in the bloody ass. And besides, the Lizardman aspect of it, completely damn pointless. Like, Lizardman, just investing money in Lizardman right now is just not worth it whatsoever. Like, this is the thing. You can't just ignore one half of the DLC because you like the other half of it. To be sure, Rattling Gunner, this is the principal Skaven DLC in terms of regiments renown, this with the most of them, I think. This does add Rattling Gunners and Giselles, but I'm gonna say it. 2 fucking units in regiments renown do not make a DLC worth it. And a campaign that has great mechanics, but also suffers from issues, is not great. Like, the reason I put Twist and Twilight higher is because both parts of the DLC has many issues as Wood Elves have, but both Legendary Lords are very workable. Wood Elves are a workable race. A boring one, enter and button simulator if you will, but workable. And you get access to the entire race roster through that DLC. The Lizardman aspect might as well not fucking exist, and I'm not gonna rate the DLC higher just because of Ikeclaw. People might disagree with me on that, but I want to be as honest as possible, and I just don't think this DLC is really worth it. And here's the thing. I make these videos because a lot of people ask me to, like, oh, which DLC should I buy? Which campaign should I buy? Like, there's plenty of new players coming in. And I do this to answer those questions. And I really don't think that if you're a new player, investing your money in this is worth it. if you've already played this DLC and you disagree with me because, oh, it's an awesome campaign, like, yeah, I get it. I understand why people have that perspective about Claw, but I don't see the value here. I think this is like a DLC that you have to buy to a certain extent if you're looking for the full Skaven experience, but that doesn't make it necessarily a good value proposition from my perspective. That's just where I stand. Vampire Coast, yeah, F tier. Horrible race, horrible mechanics, horrible legendary lords, bad army roster, mine is well non-existent, horrible research tree, like I can go on and on and on. I've made plenty of videos on the subject of Vampire Coast, just an awful race all around, has not made the transition well from Warhammer 2 to Warhammer 3 well at all. There's nothing in this DLC that's worth buying whatsoever. Which brings me to the Queen and the Crone. I'm gonna have to agree with people that say this DLC is not worth it at all. Like, okay, let me put it like this. Hellebrand is functional, but does this DLC add anything for the Dark Elves that's worth it? Kind of. Some regiments renowned, some units, maybe limited quantities. Not quite. Shadow and Blade does add important stuff. In particular, hero that can increase capacity at tier 2. Yeah. Regiments renowned, that's kind of what you're getting here. For High Elves, if you're looking to play High Elves, it does add very important stuff. Regiments renowned, the most overpowered hero in the game, a really powerful lord, but I just don't think High Elves are in a good state right now. And I think until they get reworked, I will not purchase any of their DLC for them. You know, it's kind of interesting thinking about Warden and the Paunch, because I remember when it came out, Mandalore Gaming made a video on this, saying that, yeah, if you're struggling with money and you want to save on some of it, don't buy it for the High Elves. When it came out, he did say that the greenskin part was great, and I think that kind of has stood the test of time, by the way. Queen and a Crone. Like, I don't think High Elves are worth it. I don't think the Dark Elf portion is worth it. I think the Dark Elves are far more functional and not broken as a race. But you don't need this DLC for the Dark Elves. If you're looking for... The campaign is functional, but it's not amazing either. Like, I would play Morathi, Malekith, Lokir far sooner than I would play Hellebrand. Like, the only real value proposition I would say here for Dark Elves is the Regiments Renowned. For High Elves, there's a lot more value. Powerful Legendary Lord, powerful heroes, units, etc. But just High Elves are not in a great state right now as a race in Warhammer 3. Perfectly playable, completely freaking broken, but yeah, I just don't think until they rework that it's worth investing the money in High Elves at the moment. Next up, we have the Tomb Kings, and with regards to Tomb Kings, yeah, I'm gonna put them in F tier. They're not worth it right now. They don't play well in Warhammer 3. They are a functional race. They have a fully complete roster, but they just do not match the pacing of campaigns in Warhammer 3. Like, out of the race packs, I think it's obviously better than the freaking Vampire Coast. Don't get me wrong on that. Like, if I'm doing a rate your DLC, like ordering them from best to worst in F tier, I would probably put Tomb Kings as... No, I would probably put Queen and the Crone, because there's at least something there worth it. I don't think Tomb Kings are worth playing. I don't think they add a great deal of value right now. So I would not bother with them. Then we have Ogres before I move on to Warhammer 1 DLC. And I would say that with Ogres, you're going to get a better value proposition if you buy Omens of Destruction. However, and the reason I say that actually is because you get Manure's campaign, you get extra units from the DLC, Regiments Renown, and access to the entire race roster otherwise. However, the Destruction just came out, so it's obviously going to be a much higher price. Ogre Race Pack is going to be much cheaper. You won't have access to the same types of goodies, but you do have two great campaigns. Two very unique campaigns compared to Man-Eaters, compared to one another. Both Scrag and Greases do play very differently, and I think CA did a great job. We're really making their campaigns much better. I do think Greases is still a joke on his mobility scooter, but he does have a perfectly fine and functional campaign. I do like the Ogre rework in a lot of ways, and I think they've really made that whole nomadic playstyle, or the camp playstyle, actually finally work in a way that they never did early on. Then we have Norska. Yes, we're going to fill up the bloody F tier over here in this video. Maybe I should scroll down a bit. There we go. But yeah, Norska, just not worth it whatsoever as the DLC. Horrible race, horrible legendary lords, not interesting legendary lords, just bad mechanics all around, just absolutely not worth it. Moving on with respect to the Wood Elf race pack. Yeah, I think... So, my perspective on the Wood Elf race pack, it's not horrible. It is playable. It is the enter button simulator. I can't fault the Wood Elves. Obviously, Twisted and Twilight is the much better value proposition with Wood Elves. And I do think you're getting regiments right now, you're getting the extra stuff, Legendary Hero, through Twisted and Twilight. You're not getting that for the Wood Elf race pack. There's certain things that obviously you get only through the Wood Elf race pack, but still not really the greatest deal in the world with them. But unlike stuff that's in F tier that I don't think is worth playing, I don't think High Elves are worth playing, I don't think Tomb Kings are worth playing, I don't think SOC is worth the money. Though the key stuff, the actual units, Generic Lord, etc., those can be worth it, but just, yeah, horrible campaign all the same. But yeah, Wood Elves, not horrible. They do function in a unique way. It's just that way doesn't mesh well with the campaign playstyle. So just keep that aspect in mind. Then we have Grim in the Grave. Actually, no, sorry. We have King and the Warlord. So, interesting discussion on this one. I think Skarsenik's campaign is much better than where it was. I think there's genuinely useful additions in this DLC for both dwarves and greenskins. I think Belegar's campaign is now worth a crap. So I'm going to put this in C tier. Like, you will have a good campaign with Skarsenik, which may indicate to me that I should probably put Warden and Paunch in D tier in that case. Because, like, I don't think Grom or Elfarian are worth playing right now, whereas I can genuinely say that Skarsenik is worth playing. Like, his campaign used to be a fucking joke. You do have a really good unit in Nasty Skulkers, Regiments right now, and etc. for both Dwarves and Greenskins with this DLC. Just Belegar's campaign is not that great, but the DLC additions, like even Bolt Throwers, funnily enough, but really, Nasty Skulkers, a bunch of the things that were in this DLC are worth it far more now, after the Greenskin rework, than they were before. Be it Skarsenik's campaign, some of the Goblin units, even the not-Goblin War Boss, funnily enough, is worth it more. Especially if you're playing Skarsenik, because the reason it wasn't worth it is like the ambush playstyle just didn't work. But now it does, because you can get stock stats on every army, so the value proposition went up for this DLC. So I think it's C tier. I can't really justify putting it higher considering how Belegar's campaign works, but that's where I stand. Grim in the Grave, D tier. Okay, so this is the only DLC for vampire counts. So yeah, it's worth it. Regiments round, units, etc. Knights of the Blazing Sun, very much worth it. Arch-Lectors, very much worth it for the Empire. But both campaigns fucking suck. The units, the regiments, etc., they're all good. They're fine, they're functional, no problems. So if you're talking about generic stuff, that is going to be worth it with regards to this DLC. If you're talking about the actual campaigns, no fucking way. This brings me to the Beastmen, the actual Beastmen race pack. No. Like, I'm just going to say it as bluntly as possible. I think Tarax is already a question mark, and I think the other Beastmen campaign are not worth a damn. If you want to play Beastmen, play Tarax. That's my perspective. Like, don't buy the race pack. It's also more expensive than others. Chaos Warriors. So here's my view on the Chaos Warriors. I think Archeon can... Like, I think they have more diversity in their unit roster than the champions. But there's a big but with this. You can play Be'lakor as as undivided with an entire roster without having to buy this. So you're basically buying this for Sigvald, Archeon, and Kolic. Is that worth it? Not really. So yeah, D tier, not horrible. Not completely horrible, not completely broken, playable. But I think, like, just the fact that everyone has access to Be'lakor just kind of nullifies the damn point of getting this DLC in the first place. It's not the worst value proposition. It's probably one of the cheapest DLCs you can purchase right now, but yeah, Be'lakor exists, and he's got the best Warriors of Cast campaign fly out in general, and that's all you're really going to get with the Cast Warriors DLC, I think. Not quite entirely certain with some of the Regents Renown, but I don't believe they're necessarily tied to this. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. I would really like to know that the answer. Obviously, when you have so much DLC and, you know, you have different ways of how things can work in terms of, like, if you turn it on, if you turn it off, what if you don't own the previous games, what if you don't? It complicates matters, obviously. But yeah, this is where I stand in terms of DLC. Should I have put maybe another DLC in S tier? I can't really say, like, any other DLC is S tier. There's always some issue, right? Or something holding it back. I probably would have put Maneater's campaign in S tier, for instance. But yeah, that's kind of about it. That I would have put in S tier. I know that you might think I'm being very harsh to it, but consider the stuff that's in F tier and D tier, right? I think A, B, C is pretty reasonable. But consider what's in D and F. Campaigns that are not worth playing, legendary lords that are outdated, or races that are completely outdated, or pointless to get in the first place. That's where I stand on that. Kostin signing out.